Last week, we were taking a look at the first of one of Steven Pinker's myths of human nature, this idea of the ghost in the machine. Now, Pinker thinks that this is a myth, but the idea of the ghost in the machine is an idea that seems very, very intuitive, I think, to a lot of us. It's this idea that there's more to us than just this physical body, this meat suit or machine that we go through the world with it. No, there's more to me than that. What I am is something that's not identical with this physical body. That there's some thinking part of me, a willing part of me that's not just, that doesn't just boil down to my hands and my chest and my head or maybe even my brain. So the first couple of folks that we looked at last week were two philosophers who take this idea seriously. Descartes thinks that there's more to you than your physical body, and that who you are essentially is a thinking thing. That yourself exists outside of space and time, and is this pure thinking thing. Sartre similarly seems to think that there's more to us than just molecules and atoms that are boinking around and causing us to do one thing or another. Sartre thinks that we are radically free in this sense, that we're able to make decisions and choices about how our lives are that we can make independently of the sort of biological creatures that we happen to be. So that's the sort of the idea of the ghost in the machine. It's this idea that we are indeed something that's not entirely physical, that we exist outside of space and time, and that we think outside in space and time and make decisions and will things independently of how the physical world around us is operating. And finally, this idea that we're somehow unified, that our self, this thinking thing, is a unit in and of itself, and you can't split it up into parts. So let's first just review Descartes' reasons, his evidence for thinking that this is the case, because Descartes isn't just going on, well, I don't know, that seems really true to me. It seems like I've got this soul that's going to exist even if you destroy my body. Descartes goes through some careful reasons to think that we are essentially a thinking thing. So Descartes, his larger project is to try and figure out how we can know anything at all. I'm working through that project with my intro philosophy students right now, but we're going to set that aside, and we're just going to look at the outcomes of Descartes' explorations for what it means for what we are as humans. So Descartes, he's trying to find out what he can believe, and he starts out by saying, look, I'm just not going to trust any of my beliefs until I can be absolutely certain that there's no way I can doubt those beliefs. So he just wipes out the whole tower of his beliefs, and then he casts around and he says, okay, now I'm trying to figure out if there's one belief that I can be absolutely certain is true, that I can't possibly doubt. Now, he can't believe without any doubt that he has a physical body, that his hands exist, or his head exists, or even that his brain exists. So he can't believe that. For all he knows, he's just living in a dream right now. And even though it looks and feels and tastes and everything like he has a body, those could all be figments of his imagination in a dream. He can't even be sure that geometry or mathematics are true because there might be an all-powerful evil demon deceiving him about all of that. So he's going around and he's thinking, yeah, I guess, I kind of think that I have a body, but I can still doubt that because I might be dreaming. I could doubt whether 2 plus 2 equals 4 because there could be this evil demon. I could doubt whether I'm thinking right now. Wait a second. I can't possibly doubt whether I'm thinking right now because if I do doubt whether I'm thinking, then I would be doubting, and doubting is a kind of thinking. So try as hard as I might. I can doubt whether I have 2 hands, but I cannot doubt that I am thinking right now. As long as I am wondering whether my hands exist, as long as I am doubting whether 2 plus 2 equals 4, well, then I am wondering, I am doubting, I am thinking. So I can be absolutely certain that I am a thinking thing. And gosh, if I'm a thinking thing and I'm thinking right now, well, that means I must also exist. So I know for certain that I exist and I'm a thinking thing. I still don't know, though, whether I have a body or whether space even exists at all. So notice what's interesting here. That means that Descartes has discovered, look, I can be absolutely certain that I'm a thinking thing, and that's true even if I don't have a body. So that seems to indicate that who I am just isn't really tied necessarily to the physical body I may or may not be attached to. That I can exist. It's possible for me to exist as a thinking thing, even if the physical world, and my body included, doesn't exist. This seems to be the ghost in the machine that we're talking about. Now, Descartes goes on in his meditations, and he kind of talks himself into thinking that, oh yeah, I do have a body, and that body moves and goes through space and all of that. But that doesn't change the fact that who he is does not seem to be identical with that body. Because after all, he could get rid of that body, and he would still exist as a thinking thing. So he's got this idea of his self as a thinking thing that exists outside of time and space. And it does happen to be connected to a physical body. So he's got this idea that there's two different kinds of stuff in the universe. On the one hand, there's physical stuff that exists in time and space, and that's what your body is made out of. But then on the other hand, there's this mental stuff. Mental stuff can exist outside of time and space. And it has to exist because, after all, you can imagine that your body doesn't exist at all, and yet you, as a thinking thing, well, you wouldn't be here because you wouldn't exist in space or time. You, as a thinking thing, would still exist. So, that's his idea, that we are somehow a kind of ghost in this meat machine. We've got this meat machine body that can move and, cause things to happen in space. Hello, Liam. That sort of thing. But the thing in charge of this meat machine is this mind, this thinking thing that exists outside of time and space. Now, what we read in the latter half of the week are a couple of things that start to throw cold water on this idea that we are this non-physical thinking thing. So in the next video, we'll take a look at some of the objections that Princess Elizabeth of Bohemia brings to Descartes, and we'll see why those seem to be so devastating for his theory.